Everyone knows this sound, but very few know that it wasn't born from a brilliant artistic vision. It was born from panic. John Carpenter didn't sit down to invent a new genre. He was just trying to save a B-movie that, without music, wasn't scary at all. One of the most influential sounds in electronic music history didn't come from a state-of-the-art studio. It came from a man with no money, no time, and absolutely no other options. To understand why this simple tone was so radical, you have to understand the world that Carpenter was living in. Before Halloween, electronic horror usually sounded like science fiction. It was the alien beeps and boops of movies like Forbidden Planet. It was abstract, experimental, distant. But in Europe, something very different was happening. Carpenter deeply admired the Italian horror scene, especially the films of Dario Argento, and that meant one thing: Goblin. Just 1 year before Halloween, Goblin scored Dario Argento's Suspiria. It was a masterpiece. Complex, tribal, layered, a wall of sound designed to overwhelm you with sheer power. Goblin proved that an electronic, non-orchestral score could create pure, cinematic dread, and showed that the old rules were broken. But Carpenter had a problem. He didn't have a band. He didn't have a studio full of session musicians, and he definitely didn't have the budget to create a baroque, maximalist soundtrack like Suspiria. He had to take that idea of relentless, hypnotic dread and strip it down to the bone. Where Goblin added layers to create fear, Carpenter had to remove them. He took the maximalism of 70s prog rock and, almost by accident, invented a new kind of minimalism. The budget for Halloween was around $300,000. The movie wasn't working. There was no money for an orchestra. So Carpenter sat down with Dan Wyman, a professor at USC, in a room full of early synthesizers, massive walls of knobs, patch cables, and unstable oscillators. He had 3 days. In a normal film production, you can spend 3 days just to get the drum sound right. But Carpenter had 3 days to score an entire movie, and this limitation dictated the style. He couldn't write complex chord changes that required weeks of orchestration, and he couldn't program long, intricate sequences either, because the technology was primitive, slow, and unreliable. He needed something he could play live, something he could record in 1 or 2 takes. He needed a pattern. The synthesizer wasn't chosen because it was the instrument of the future, but because it was the only instrument that could sound big enough to fill a theater while being played by just one guy in a small room. Now, let's look under the hood. Why does this simple sequence work so well? It's the time signature. The main Halloween theme is in 5/4, while most pop music and most comforting music is in 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a square, it's stable. Your body knows exactly where the next beat will fall. 5/4 is different. It's unstable. It keeps you slightly off balance. Count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Human brain is a prediction machine. It constantly tries to guess the next beat, the next pattern. When you hear a 5/4 rhythm, your brain expects the loop to resolve in 4, and that extra step forces a tiny reset every bar. The loop restarts before your brain is comfortable, and this creates a subtle subconscious anxiety. You might not be able to explain it, but you feel it. This is why the Halloween theme doesn't just sound like music. It feels like a warning. While an orchestra tries to manipulate your emotions with big swelling strings, this pulse behaves like a machine. It doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't react to you. It just keeps going. And that emotional indifference is exactly what makes Michael Myers so terrifying. He doesn't speed up, he doesn't slow down, he doesn't bargain, and the music mirrors that. Cold, relentless, mechanical. And here is the twist. That cheap sound didn't stay trapped inside the horror genre. It escaped. When producers and young musicians saw the success of Halloween, a crucial idea took root. You didn't need an orchestra or a giant studio or a massive budget. An entire commercially viable project could rest on the raw emotional impact of a few simple electronic sounds. This was the real spark. Halloween didn't just scare audiences, it legitimized the synthesizer as a lead emotional instrument in popular culture. The synth was no longer just a science fiction sound effect box, it became the center of the narrative, and this was a huge shift. It was the democratization of production. The same freedom born from Carpenter's desperation is what allowed artists like Gary Newman, Depeche Mode, and the Human League to emerge. They took that cold mechanical pulse and gave it a melody. They kept the emotional power of those simple electronic textures, but pointed them at the dance floor instead of the knife. So, while the exact 5/4 rhythm of Halloween stayed mostly in the realm of suspense and horror, the texture of that sound, that raw, icy synthesizer cutting through the mix, became one of the defining colors of the 80s. The tools of fear became the tools of euphoria. You might think the story ends there, but this creates a paradox we are still living in today. We now have unlimited plugins, unlimited tracks, unlimited time, and yet modern music often struggles to find this kind of raw identity. Carpenter proved something uncomfortable. The wrong gear often creates the right sound. And Panic is a better producer than perfectionism. He didn't succeed despite the limitations. He succeeded because of them. So, this forces us to ask a difficult question about the music we listen to right now. Who is actually brave enough to work like this today? Is it the Stranger Things composers? Or is the real innovation hiding deeper in the underground? Tell me in the comments who you think carries this torch best. And remember, if you are waiting for the perfect gear to make your masterpiece, you are missing the point.